The 3-minute rule. That tricks your brain. There is a neuroscience-based technique that can dramatically reduce your brain's resistance to starting almost any task. And it takes just 3 minutes to trigger. Not because 3 minutes magically build discipline, but because they change the way your brain evaluates effort. If you've been calling yourself lazy, there's a good chance you've been blaming the wrong problem all along. Behavioral neuroscience specialists explain that your brain decides whether to move or avoid effort before you ever feel motivated. That means waiting until you feel like it is often the very habit keeping you stuck. Motivation isn't the starting point. It's usually the result of movement. In this video, you'll discover why this simple 3-minute protocol works, what it changes inside your brain, and how you can use it to break through procrastination, endless scrolling, and mental resistance almost on demand. The method is surprisingly simple, but the reason it works is something most people never learn. Because the biggest obstacle standing between you and consistent action isn't laziness. It's an automatic survival mechanism your brain activates without asking your permission. The real villain, your brain's startup cost. Think about the last time you knew exactly what you had to do but still couldn't make yourself begin. Maybe it was opening your laptop to work, putting on your running shoes, or sitting down to study. The task itself wasn't impossible. Starting, it felt impossible. Scientists who study decision-making have found that the brain assigns an energy cost before every action. It doesn't ask, "Is this important?" It asks, "How expensive will this be?" If the predicted cost feels too high, your brain delays the action long before you consciously decide to procrastinate. This is what many people mistake for laziness. In reality, your brain is trying to protect what it sees as valuable energy. Thousands of years ago, conserving energy increased the chances of survival. Today, that same system treats writing an email, reading a chapter, or beginning a workout as something that should be postponed if an easier reward is available. The interesting part is that this resistance is strongest before you begin. Once you're already working, the brain often recalculates the effort and realizes the task isn't nearly as demanding as it predicted. That's why you've probably experienced this before. You dreaded starting for an hour, then ended up working for 40 minutes without wanting to stop. Behavioral psychologists have repeatedly noticed this pattern. The hardest part of productive work is rarely doing it. It's crossing the invisible line between intention and action. That raises an important question. If your brain consistently exaggerates how difficult it will be to start, what exactly is causing that false prediction? The answer explains why motivation disappears before you've even taken the first step. The mistake that kills motivation before you begin. The moment you picture the entire task, your brain starts calculating the total effort before you've done anything. You don't see one page. You see the whole report. You don't see one exercise. You see the entire workout. You don't see the first 10 minutes of studying. You see hours of concentration, discomfort, and mental fatigue. That prediction creates resistance. Psychologists who study mental effort have found that people often overestimate how difficult a task will feel before starting it. The brain combines time, uncertainty, boredom, and possible failure into one heavy mental image. Then it reacts to that image as if the entire burden must be carried immediately. This is called anticipatory cognitive load. In simple terms, your brain becomes tired from imagining the work before the work has even begun. That is why large goals can destroy motivation even when the first action is easy. Writing a book feels overwhelming. Opening a blank document does not. Getting in shape feels exhausting. Doing one set does not. Studying for an exam feels painful. Reading one paragraph does not. The task hasn't changed. Only the size of the mental picture has changed. Your brain is also sensitive to uncertainty. When it cannot clearly see the next action, it predicts more effort and more risk. Vague instructions like work on the project create more resistance than specific instructions like open the file and write the first sentence. Ambiguity gives your mind room to invent difficulty. This is where most people make a critical mistake. They try to create enough motivation to match the size of the entire goal. But motivation is unstable, And the brain will almost always choose an immediate reward over a distant result when the starting cost feels too high. It is to make the first action so small that your brain stops treating it like a threat. And that is exactly what the 3-minute protocol is designed to do. The 3-minute neuroscience trick. Outsmart your brain's resistance. The 3-minute rule is often misunderstood. People think the goal is to work for only 3 minutes. It isn't. The goal is to convince your brain that starting is safe. Here's how it works. Choose the task you've been avoiding. Set a timer for exactly 3 minutes. During that time, give yourself permission to do only the smallest meaningful version of the task. If you're writing, produce a rough paragraph. If you're studying, read one section and take a few notes. If you're exercising, complete the warm-up or the first set. Don't think about finishing. Don't negotiate with yourself. Your only mission is to keep moving until the timer ends. This works because your brain updates its predictions using real experience, not imagination. Before you begin, it expects discomfort, uncertainty, and high effort. Once you're engaged, it receives new information. The task is clearer. The uncertainty drops. The perceived effort shrinks. What looked like a mountain a few minutes ago starts feeling like a manageable hill. Specialists in dopamine regulation explain that taking action creates feedback your brain cannot generate through thinking alone. Every small sign of progress reduces the feeling of threat and increases the expectation that continuing will lead somewhere worthwhile. This is also why stopping after 3 minutes is surprisingly difficult for many people. Once you've crossed the mental barrier, inertia begins working in your favor. The same force that kept you stuck now helps you keep going. Your attention stabilizes. Distractions become less attractive, and continuing often feels easier than stopping. The power of this method isn't hidden inside the number 3. It's hidden inside what those first few minutes change inside your brain. And the biggest change has nothing to do with willpower. It happens inside the very system that controls your desire to act in the first place. When dopamine switches sides. Most people believe dopamine is the chemical that rewards you after success. That idea is incomplete. Experts who study dopamine explain that its most important job is to drive pursuit, not celebration. Your brain releases dopamine when it detects meaningful progress and believes another step could bring an even better outcome. This changes everything. If you spend 30 minutes thinking about a task, scrolling through productivity videos, or waiting for motivation to appear, your brain receives almost no evidence of progress. Without progress, the drive to continue never builds. You stay trapped in a cycle where you expect motivation to come first, while your brain is waiting for movement before producing more motivation. The moment you complete even a tiny action, the equation changes. You finish one paragraph. You solve one problem. You organize your desk. Instead of predicting discomfort, it starts predicting progress. Researchers who investigate habit formation have consistently found that immediate wins strengthen the desire to repeat a behavior. The reward doesn't have to be large. It simply has to arrive quickly enough for the brain to connect the action with a positive outcome. This is why disciplined people often look naturally motivated. They aren't waking up with more willpower than everyone else. They have trained their brains to expect progress whenever they begin. Over time, the anticipation of that progress becomes rewarding on its own, making it easier to start again tomorrow. That is also why relying on massive bursts of inspiration usually fails. It builds consistency through repeated experiences that teach it one simple lesson: starting leads to something worthwhile. But even after understanding this, there's another invisible trap that causes people to abandon good habits. It isn't laziness. And it isn't a lack of dopamine. It's the endless conversation your brain has with you before every important decision. How to stop your brain from negotiating with you. Every time you tell yourself, "I'll start in 10 minutes," your brain learns something dangerous. It learns that every important action is open for debate. That internal negotiation feels harmless because it sounds logical. You tell yourself you'll begin after one more video, one more coffee, one quick check of your phone. Each excuse seems reasonable on its own. Together, they become a habit of postponement. Behavioral scientists have found that every unnecessary decision consumes mental energy. The more choices you make before starting a task, the more likely you are to choose the option that offers immediate comfort instead of long-term reward. This is why productive people don't simply have stronger, they remove opportunities to negotiate. Instead of asking, "Should I work now?" they create situations where the question never appears. That means preparing your environment before you need it. Leave the document already open. Put your workout clothes where you'll see them first. Keep your phone in another room before beginning deep work. Decide exactly what the first action will be while you're still thinking clearly, not when your brain is searching for an excuse. Psychologists call this implementation planning. The principle is simple. Decide in advance what you'll do, where you'll do it, and when you'll do it. When the moment arrives, you're following a script instead of making a decision. This approach dramatically reduces mental friction because your brain no longer has to compare alternatives. The path has already been chosen. Action becomes the default, instead of something that requires fresh motivation every day. The goal is not to become mentally tougher than your impulses. The goal is to make your desired behavior easier than your excuses. Once your environment, your schedule, and your first action all point in the same direction, resistance has very little room to grow. And when you repeat that process often enough, something remarkable begins to happen. Those first 3 minutes stop changing only your day. They begin changing the way your brain is wired for every day that follows. The golden window. The first 180 seconds rewire more than your day. The first 3 minutes of any task are far more important than most people realize. They don't just determine whether you'll have a productive session. They teach your brain what kind of person you are becoming. Every time you begin instead of delay, your brain records a pattern. Over time, those patterns become expectations. Neuroscience researchers have observed that the brain is constantly adapting to repeated behaviors. The more often a specific sequence is performed, the more efficiently the neural pathways supporting that behavior operate. This process doesn't happen overnight, but every repetition strengthens the next one. That's why consistency beats intensity almost every time. One incredible day of motivation cannot compete with dozens of ordinary days where you simply start. Each successful beginning tells your brain, this is normal. Your attention starts filtering out competing distractions. The notifications that seemed irresistible a moment ago lose some of their appeal because your brain has already committed resources to the task in front of you. What felt impossible before starting now feels natural simply because you've crossed the threshold. This is how disciplined people are built, not through heroic acts of willpower, but through hundreds of small moments where they choose action before emotion. Eventually, starting stops feeling like a battle because the brain no longer expects one. The next time you hesitate, remember that you're not deciding whether to work for a few minutes. You're casting another vote for the person your brain believes you are. And those votes accumulate faster than most people ever imagine. Laziness was never the real problem. If there's one idea to remember from this video, let it be tease. Your brain is not designed to maximize achievement. It's designed to minimize unnecessary energy expenditure. The 3-minute rule works because it doesn't fight your brain. It works with it. Instead of trying to overpower resistance with motivation, it lowers the perceived cost of taking the first step. Once you begin, your brain updates its prediction. The task feels less threatening. Progress starts generating momentum, and continuing becomes easier than stopping. That's why discipline isn't something you suddenly discover one morning. It isn't a personality trait, and it isn't reserved for a lucky few. It's the result of teaching your brain, over and over again, that starting is safe, rewarding, and automatic. The next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll do it later," don't ask whether you feel motivated. Don't think about finishing the project. Don't imagine the hours ahead. Give yourself exactly 3 minutes. Start with the smallest meaningful action you can take, and let your brain do what it was designed to do. Adapt. Most people spend years searching for a secret that will make hard work feel effortless. The truth is much simpler. You don't need to eliminate effort. So before you leave this video, test the method. Pick the one task you've been avoiding. Set a timer for 3 minutes and begin immediately. Don't wait until tomorrow, because every delay strengthens the habit you're trying to break, while every beginning strengthens the person you're becoming. Remember this whenever procrastination shows up again. You don't defeat laziness by finding more willpower. You defeat it by making it impossible for your brain to keep postponing the first step.